Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev just took place in the co-main event of UFC 294, and I can't wait to break down this fight because, oh my god, what a first round that was from Khamzat Chimaev, and then it was basically 2 rounds of absolutely nothing because both of them were absolutely exhausted, especially Khamzat Chimaev, which is absolutely crazy to say because he's the guy with a full training camp, and Usman was the guy with a week and a half's training camp. And I feel like if it was a 5-rounder, it probably could have gone Usman's way. And there's also an argument that I'm going to make in this video, once we talk about the fight in general, that it should have gone Usman's way, or should have been potentially a draw. I'm okay with a draw for that fight. I just don't understand how 2 of the judges gave the 3rd round to Khamzat Chimaev. I understand it a little bit because of the control time, but he did absolutely nothing in terms of damage in that round. And Usman just simply out-damaged him in round 3. And I thought this was a damage-based scoring system last time I checked. So maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll find out in time. I rewatched the 3rd round though, and I think that maybe that can go to Usman. Either way, let's talk about the fight itself and talk about what we learned from the fight. So Khamzat Chimaev is probably the most dangerous first-round fighter there is in the UFC. He is an absolute dominant force, goes out there, dominates Usman in the 1st round, gets the takedown, little bit of stand-up first if I'm not mistaken, then he shoots a takedown. And by the way, the most impressive part about this 1st round for Khamzat Chimaev was he shoots a takedown on Usman. It's a bad takedown. It's not a good takedown. At first when he shot it, I thought, oh, what a bad takedown. Usman's going to stuff this one. But then he works his way into the takedown. And if he so much as gets a hold of one of your legs, it doesn't have to be a double leg that's in on the hips. If he so much as gets a grip of one of your legs, he will complete that takedown 100%. And that's what we found out here against Kamaru Usman. He shoots in, not a good takedown, but grabs the leg, hoists up Usman, and trips out his rear leg. Usman goes down to the canvas. Khamzat Chimaev starts threatening some dominant positions, but then Khamzat Chimaev does what he does well, and this is why I said he'd be able to out-grapple Usman in this fight. He works around to a more dominant position than just staying on the double leg like other middleweights like Marvin Vettori and things like that, where they just stay on the double leg, put their head between the legs of their opponent, and just try and basically hold until their opponent falls down in front of them. Khamzat Chimaev chain wrestles. If he doesn't get the double leg or the single leg, he'll go around to the back position, get underneath the arm of Usman, get the back position with a body lock, and then he started trying to drag Usman down to the canvas, which absolutely worked, by the way. And then he starts getting dominant position on Usman. One hook in on the side of Usman. Usman's like a little bit cautious. He's like, oh god, this isn't going to plan straight away. This isn't the best situation for me right now. Usman starts trying to defend. Khamzat Chimaev gets one hook in on the leg. Starts dragging that leg out as well. And we know how weak the structural integrity of Usman is if you're putting your whole body weight on him. His knees are absolutely cooked. So Khamzat Chimaev starts hooking one of the legs, dragging it out, making Usman do the splits, losing his balance, dragging Usman down to the canvas a couple of times over and over again, and then eventually gets dominant position with both hooks in on the back, or one hook in the back position, with the other one sort of keeping him balanced on the back of Usman. Now I thought this was going to be over, because if Khamzat Chimaev's on your back, Usman, we've seen him rear naked choked before. My prediction was a 1st round rear naked choke for Khamzat Chimaev, and I thought that's what was going to happen. But to be fair to him, Kamaru Usman was not lifting that chin for nothing in that fight. Absolutely not. He had an absolutely gold game plan of just saying, you know what? Do whatever you want to the side of my head with these little punches that you're throwing at me right now. I am not lifting my chin and giving you my neck on any condition whatsoever. And that's what he did in that 1st round. You saw a lot of times Khamzat Chimaev was trying to pry out the chin of Usman and slide his hand underneath and get that choke, or he was trying to land some shots, hoping that Usman would lift his head up and then would go for that sort of rear naked choke attempt. He had a couple of attempts of that rear naked choke, but they weren't locked in. They were across the face of Usman, so they're more just uncomfortable positions for Kamaru Usman to be in. And Usman did a really, really good job of defending against a rear naked choke. Amazing work from Usman in that round. But dominant from Chimaev. gets in his dominant position, does really, really well. Eventually, when Chimaev's done with a couple of rear naked choke attempts and landing a couple of punches here and there on the side of Usman's head, eventually, Kamaru Usman starts standing up with Chimaev on his back. In this moment, Chimaev gets a body triangle with his legs. I thought this is where it was going to be over. I was like, God, Usman, don't stand up with this dude on your back. He's going to find a better way to pry out the head and get his arm under the neck and secure that rear naked choke standing. But Usman had a plan, and he dived forward on his own head in an attempt to mess up Khamzat Chimaev, who was on his back. His only opportunity was to do that, and he did it, and he ended up not having his back taken anymore, and instead being in a position where Chimaev actually had mount over him and eventually had his back again on Kamaru Usman. Now, the thing was about this, I was very surprised that Usman survived that round one. Khamzat Chimaev is a big dude, strong dude, had a full training camp for this fight as well, had more time to build up into the middleweight division, but he couldn't seem to get that rear naked choke. He was doing great ground and pound and was absolutely dominant in that round. He was doing great ground and pound, landing good shots around the guard of Usman. But I think what Chimaev needed to do in that position was choose one or the other. What are you doing? Are you trying to get a rear naked choke, or are you trying to get a TKO? I truly believe if Chimaev sort of went full force for a TKO, he probably could have got it, in my honest opinion. I reckon if Chimaev would have just kept up with those punches on Usman over and over again, and even when he had mount on Usman on the ground as well and had a dominant position where he had Usman laid out flat, if he had just sort of chose to only go for ground and pound, it wouldn't even be a thing where, oh, Usman's out cold, it's time to call off the fight, or Usman's rocked, he doesn't know where he is, he's not responding, it's time to call off the fight. It'd be a situation where Chimaev's landed 20 of these little shots over and over again, and the referee is starting to say something like, you've got to move, Usman, show me you're still in this fight and get out of there. That's what it would have maybe ended up being. And if it got to that point and Chimaev landed another 10 because Usman weren't going nowhere, if it got to that point and Chimaev kept landing, I reckon it could have been a TKO. So that was a mistake by Khamzat Chimaev to chase the sub instead of a TKO, in my opinion, because it wasn't his positional control that was the problem. It was his submission ability that was the problem there, because Usman kept tucking his chin. So that was a mistake by Chimaev, but he won the first round. Is it as good as some of the other 10-8s we've seen? No, it wasn't. Am I surprised that every single judge scored that round a 10-8? I thought one of them would go 10-9. It was a dominant round, and I think it was a 10-8, in my own opinion, but it was on the borderline, right? It was a weak, that was one of the weakest 10-8s you can possibly give, where, you know, he didn't dominate him and he didn't cut him open and beat him up and nearly TKO him or nearly choke him out with the arm under the chin a few times, but he did dominate the whole round, and Usman had zero success. So that's really what it came down to. Usman had no success whatsoever in that round. Chimaev had all of the success in that round. I don't mind scoring it a 10-8 on the official criteria. So round 1, 10-8 Chimaev. Round 2, Chimaev's absolutely exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. And in my opinion, Usman was absolutely exhausted as well. And I'm going to find the stats right now, so my face is going to go a little bit bright. Round 2 was 11-9 in favor of Kamaru Usman. Big takeaway as well. Usman didn't get taken down in round 2. Chimaev failed a few takedowns. Now, they're saying that Chimaev had an injury in that fight. Maybe he did, but that's not what goes into the scoring. Oh, well, Chimaev's injured, so give it to him if it's close. That's not what goes into it. But Chimaev was shooting takedowns in round 2. Later in the round, not really much going on in the first half of the round, which I thought was crazy, because I'm like, dude, you've had a full training camp. Usman's had a day and a half's notice. He's looking tired. Push and go. I was shocked in round 2 to see both of them basically not doing anything to each other than Usman minorly getting the better of the striking at range exchange that they had. Both of them were exhausted though. Towards the midway point of round 2 and the end of it, Usman started landing some pretty good shots. I think at one point he landed a good jab. At another point he landed a really good 1-2 on Chimaev as Chimaev covered up. And I thought to myself, you know what? Usman landed the better shots of that round. You got to go that round, Usman. He landed more, he landed better, and he didn't end up on bottom position, and he stuffed the takedowns. That's got to be an Usman round. I don't think anyone is in disagreement with that round 2 being scored to Kamaru Usman. Round 3. is the deciding round between a draw or a Chimaev win. That's my honest opinion. And if the judge didn't give it 10-8 in the first round to Chimaev, which I don't think it'd be above, I don't think it'd be too crazy if they didn't give it a 10-8, but I would give it a 10-8. It would be between a Usman win potentially on maybe one of the scorecards. Who knows? Round 3 is what this fight comes down to. Round 3 is how Chimaev possibly gets a win against Usman. That much we can agree on. I think it was a draw. I think Usman won round 3. I've rewatched round 3. And as much as I've been known to trash Usman and, I didn't like him when he first came up. And I sort of started coming around to him a little bit. And then I was sort of bored of him as champion. And Edwards got it done and I enjoyed it. As much as I didn't like Usman, put your bias aside. Damage-based scoring criteria. Who won round 3? What did Chimaev do in terms of damage to Usman in round 3? I don't even remember what Chimaev landed on Usman. Maybe a glancing right hand here and there. I think he landed one good right hand on Usman. Other than that, maybe a couple of stomps to his leg. A couple of taps when he was on top position, but Usman was tapping away back. On damage-based scoring, Usman was the one landing the decent shots in round 3. He landed some good shots on the feet. I think he landed another good one too. He landed a solid jab on Chimaev as well. He landed a good shot to the body on Chimaev with a right hand or something along those lines. He even, in my opinion, may have got the better of the exchange at the end that they had when they were both swinging at each other. And he was the one pushing forward at the end. I think Usman got round 3. I'm just going to be absolutely honest with you guys. I think Usman got round 3, and the stats suggest that it was 22-13 in favor of Usman, who landed a higher percentage of his shots. In my opinion, and everyone's opinion, landed the better shots that round, 100%, and was throwing more as well. So he's being busier. He landed more shots, by far, by the way, by nearly double. Couple of shots off doubling Chimaev's output in terms of shots landed. Significant shots landed as well. And he landed better. And he was the one pushing at the end of the round. I feel like when a Chechnyan or Dagestani's on top, we start counting control time. But when everyone else is on top, we start saying, no damage. Or maybe it's just because they're a superstar and this is what they're doing. But I feel like round 3, one judge had it a draw. I think he was right. Round 3, 2 of the judges scoring that for Chimaev. I can't point to a strike Chimaev really landed that did anything to Usman in that round. He didn't do anything on top position other than little taps. And even then, they were very few taps that he had. And he did get the takedown, I get it. I could see an argument for Usman winning round 3. I reckon that could have been a draw. But what do we take away from this fight is the big question that we need to talk about as well. Chimaev's cardio. We give a lot of trash to other people's cardio. It wasn't a crazy first round. He did clearly win round 1. It's not like Usman had stuffed 4 takedowns and he'd worked so hard to get the 5th one and then he had dominated Usman from like the 2-minute mark onwards. It wasn't like that. He got, I believe, his first takedown on Usman and then stayed on Usman, dragging him to the canvas again. It wasn't a crazy pace. Now, I know holding on to someone's back and doing the body triangle really gasses out your legs. I completely understand that as well. And he did say that he was injured after round 1 somehow. He broke his wrist or broke his hand. But it's sus to me seeing Chimaev slow down that much in the 2nd and 3rd round compared to Usman, who seemed to have better cardio on a week and a half's notice. That was kind of crazy to me. That was absolutely crazy to see. And I think it leaves the question if that was a 5-rounder, which it arguably should have been, and Usman still took it on short notice, let's say, I would have maybe gone with Usman winning that one, to be honest with you. He should have won the 3rd, and he probably would have won the 4th and 5th as well. And if it was a full camp Usman that was even having a 3-rounder against Chimaev, I think that 3rd round would have been clear enough for Usman to get that draw at least. And maybe, just maybe, a full camp Usman who's been wrestling for 8 weeks, who's been training his takedown defense and getting it to tip-top shape, maybe Usman would have even done better in the second round, and who knows, stung Chimaev a bit more in the third and had his own 10-8. Or maybe dropped Chimaev at some point. Or maybe not have had that 10-8 round in round 1 against him. Maybe he would have stuffed one of the earlier takedowns and that domination would have started at 2.5 minutes into the round rather than a minute into the round. You know what I mean? And maybe that would have been the difference between a 10-8 and a 10-9. I'm just giving my opinion on this. I'm a big Chimaev fan, and I've been talking about Chimaev for so long, how he's going to be dominant. Oh, he ragdolls Adesanya if he moves up. He ragdolls this. I think he beats Usman at welterweight. I think he dominates Covington at welterweight. I think he dominates Edwards. I've been the guy saying this for so long about Chimaev. That was Chimaev getting kind of exposed. Really good performance to do what he did in round 1 to Kamaru Usman. Absolutely amazing. But I don't think that's even the best version of Usman. I think the best version of Usman is long gone. And still he's making it that tough for you? I think overall, this was a loss for Chimaev. A little bit. A little bit of a lowering of stock. His post-fight speech was great. Really good message. Going to get a ton of fans from this for sure. But I think the belief in him has definitely dropped if the stock hasn't. You know what I mean? If the stock in terms of fan power hasn't, the belief in him definitely has. Because that was a little bit... You kind of got served Usman up on a silver platter there. Did he not? And it should have been a draw. It should have been a draw. You listen to me, eh? It should have been a draw. I'm sounding Nigerian. But still, it should have been a draw. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. See you later. And if Chimaev's injured, Duplessis up next. How about it? I don't think he earned a title shot from that. That weren't TKOing Robert Whittaker. That was scraping by a short notice Usman that was served up to you on a silver platter that's past his prime. Duplessis beat Whittaker, dominated him, TKO'd him on full camp in a prime version of Whittaker as well. See you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip.